I lost my job. I got fired. I'm feeling down, depressed. And this brother, who always seems to have a way to tell me what I need to hear right when I need to hear it, which is fascinating to me. But I'm feeling down on myself. And he says to me these words that hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, "Great, you lost your job. Now find your life."
Hello and welcome to the Spirit Change Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Garment. Oh my goodness, let me just tell you, Lloyd Hopkins is in the room and you are in for a treat. He and I have been connected for about 2 years now, and I wish I had known this brother a long time ago. That whole quote, iron sharpens iron, with him in my circle, I am definitely a better businesswoman, a better leader. And so, Lloyd, thank you so much for being here, being present.
Man, that was an amazing intro. And because the feeling's mutual, like the stuff that you do and the stuff that I've been exposed to, and it's 2 years of me knowing you and just getting to see how your brain works, how you're investing in the community, especially the Black community. Because a lot of this is thankless work. Nobody asked. Like the stuff we do, nobody particularly came to us and asked us to do it. So with that, we've taken on like some unnecessary burdens, some frustrations, some self-imposed pain, and but to still do that, show up with a smile on your face, caring about others, making time, and even looking for other ways to give us a voice, like creating podcasts like this. You deserve all the flowers, all the roses. You were one of my top 10 favorite people in Phoenix. So I'm honored to be here today.
Oh my goodness, I'm super humbled by that. So I always start the Spirit Change podcast out with asking you, what is one word to describe you and why?
If I had one word, it would be empathetic. I'm a bleeding heart. When I graduated high school, that Gandhi phrase, "Be the change you want to see in the world," like that really resonated with me. I have a heart for people, especially Black and brown people. Some of the ones that are the most disenfranchised often, and when systems fail, it's largely in communities of people that look like us. And I grew up, single parent household, grew up in challenged neighborhoods where I was counted out. A lot of people didn't expect me to be anything, amount to anything. So I come from environments of low expectations, but I also feel like those environments are ripe with talent, ripe with individuals that we've seen examples time and time again of those individuals changing the world, because those communities have incredibly resilient people, incredibly creative people, incredibly talented people who just don't have access to the resources. So they have to work twice as hard. What I believe is that I want to see everybody have an opportunity to fulfill their life's potential, especially Black and brown folks. And so a lot of my work was fueled by that upbringing, fueled by that being in my heart, that I truly do feel for the human experience. I feel for what we go through, and not just Black and brown folks, all of us. I just want to see us have a better society, a more equitable society. And for me, that starts with education, and you got to start with the communities that are the most negatively impacted. And so I'm proud to be able to do this work, but I'm very much a bleeding heart. I'm very much, the pandemic was hard on me because I felt for everybody. And, but what kept me sane was the fact that I do the work that I do, that I, in some small way, I'm getting up every day and contributing to making the world a better place, at least in some small way. So yeah, I'm gonna try not to be so long-winded, but empathetic is my word.
And you know what, I hear that in you, right? In everything that you do, that empathy really drives your passion for the work that you do. And I neglected to say this, but you are the founder and the executive director of the $1 Million Teacher Project.
Mhm.
And you are literally pouring into communities every single day. And Lloyd, what you do, you are starting where it needs to start, which is in the school system.
Yeah.
And I think, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, and I always joke often. I'm like, oh, blame it on a Decatur public school, right? But we say that, I say that jokingly, but if the resources had have been in the schools, we might have, as a community, we would have been a healthier community. We would have been
exactly right.
thriving a lot quicker, a lot sooner. So Lloyd, let's jump right into your spare change moment. So when I always want to kind of tee it up with a spare change moment is that moment in your life. It was one of those pivotal moments in your life. It was probably one of the toughest seasons that you might have gone through. And at the time, you didn't know why you were going through it, but on the other side, or when you look back over your life, it was literally the season that catapulted you to where you are today. So what's your spare change moment?
Man, my spare change moment was probably about a decade ago. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. I was fired from a job. So I was working for an organization that I loved, but I believed in the work we were doing. I'll say that. I believed in the work that we were doing and its ability to impact young people, impact kids. But me and the executive director at the time really weren't seeing eye to eye. I didn't necessarily agree with her approach to management and running an organization. And normally what happens when you're not seeing eye to eye with your supervisor, you probably wind up on the short end of that stick. And I found myself fired. At that time, I hadn't been unemployed since I was 16 years old. Like I literally had kept a job, sometimes working multiple jobs since I was 16 years old. And I was fired. I was, I've been married. Me and my wife have been together for 21, 22 years, we had two young kids at the time. I think my son was probably around 10, maybe a little younger. And we were reduced to a single income household. And it was really a tough moment. And I still remember to this day what happened the day that I got fired. The first thing I did was I called my wife, and she was like, and I was crying. And she was like, it's all right, we'll work it out. Let's do your unemployment. So she started helping me kind of get the logistics together of being unemployed. And the second call I did is the one that really changed my life and put me on the pathway that would lead me to eventually launching the $1 Million Teacher Project. So that second call was to my younger brother. I have two brothers, an older brother and a younger brother. Me and my younger brother are 2 years apart. So I called my younger brother because, he and I always just kind of shoot the breeze or whatever. We're each other's go-to when there is a challenging moment. So I call him and I'm like, man, I lost my job. I got fired. I'm feeling down, depressed. And this brother, who always seems to have a way to tell me what I need to hear right when I need to hear it, which is fascinating to me. But I'm feeling down on myself. And he says to me these words that hit me like a ton of bricks. He said, great, you lost your job. Now find your life.
Ooh, drop the mic.
And even now, even as I say it, it still gives me chills because I when they said that, I was like, you're right, man. Because at that time, I would say I was a far more egotistical, shallow version of myself, very much more materialistic. And maybe he saw those things in me. I was all about the title, what your title is and the trappings of success, the type of car you drive, how much money you make. And I really thought that the trappings of success is what makes you a worthwhile person. what makes people want to be around you because of you having the trappings of success. And so when he said that, I realized that he was right. I need to find my life. I need to find my true north. Like, what really is my purpose here? The purpose isn't to chase money. You can't take this stuff with you. Like, you definitely need money. It's a tool, it's a resource, but it shouldn't be the only motivator into what you do, And I think as a society, we're taught to chase money. Mm-hmm. But after going through this experience, I believe we should be taught to chase purpose. Yes. We should be taught to chase passion, because the money will come. Because if you have two hamburger joints right across the street from each other, and one of them is just kind of serving you hamburgers and just doing their job, but the other one, you're walking in there and there's people that are passionate about the hamburger. They're excited to have you eat the hamburger. You're probably going to go spend your money there, even though the burger may be a little bit more expensive. People invest in passion. People invest in purpose, and you have to be good at it. And when you align with your passion and purpose, you're a little bit more committed to the idea, and you're willing to go through the hoops and hurdles it takes to launch an idea. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. And if you're not launching a venture tied to your passion or purpose, that idea is probably not going to be successful. It's probably going to fail. You may achieve some incremental success. You may catch lightning in a bottle and have a moment, but it's not going to be sustained, because as soon as it gets hard, you're going to want to abandon and jump to something else. So I found myself unemployed for 1.5 years, and it was the hardest time in my life, but it was also the most rewarding time in my life. When I first got fired, where the humbling moment was, I was like, I'm a pretty well-known guy, liked guy in the city. I'm like, as soon as people know I'm fired, the phone's going to start ringing. I'm going to get another job. Boom. I'm just going to sit by the phone. The phone didn't ring. The phone didn't ring. And you know how humbling that was, wow. And so, oh, go ahead.
I want to jump in here real quick, because I really do want to talk to this. And I couldn't imagine, I was let go of my job in 2013, I want to say.
This may have been around the same time.
Yeah. And I want to really dive into the emotion behind it, because I think that a lot of times, and I can't, I know as a female how I felt, but I couldn't imagine being a male with a household, wife and children. Here you are having to tell your wife that, and trying to figure out, how do I navigate this space of where, here, to your point, right? You're the man. Yeah. You didn't think that you being fired, I never would have thought that you would have been fired. Like, that is never something that I would have even computed in my mind. Yeah, so let's talk about the emotion behind that. As a man in this society, unemployed, relying on, and I hate to say relying on his wife, but that's ultimately what ended up happening for 1.5 years.
Yeah. And in my life, like, anybody that knows me, I've always been a leader. Like, even in high school, I was the one running my crew, my guy. I was always that guy. And people would characterize me as the strong friend. I was always the one that seemed like I had my act together and all this, that, and the third. And then to be fired, I was used to being in control, and I would show just how not in control I actually am, because it didn't happen at the perfect time. I wasn't able to control it. And then second, in this society, men are raised to be the breadwinner. Like, that's how we're reared. Like, you need to be the breadwinner, head of the household. You got to be the one bringing home the bacon. And we're not really informed or prepared or taught, like, no, like, a marriage is also supposed to be a partnership. This is, and it's okay. Sometimes you're up, sometimes she's up, sometimes you're down, sometimes she's down, but you're there, you're a unit, for better or for worse. So it was humiliating. It was tough. And I had to face a lot of my own insecurities. I had to face myself as a man. I had to face all the superficial elements of myself. And the most important thing is I had to face my ego. I had to check my ego, and I had to look myself in the mirror and depend on my partner, which is really the goal. If you marry well and you marry right, and you are supposed to be able to lean on each other, but it was tremendously difficult, and it took me that year and a half to learn and to check kind of some of the lesser qualities about my personality, and evolve. That moment and that experience really caused me to evolve in a lot of good ways.
Now, how did that evolution take place? Like, was it something that you had to do that internal work for yourself, or did you have candid conversations with your spouse, or did you seek counseling? Like, how did you really mature into the guy that you are now?
Yeah, so it was intentional. So I took my brother's words, I took it to heart, and I started intentionally trying to find my life. So what that meant was I started inserting myself in any room, anything that interested me, because we're dynamic people, and there's a lot of things we want to do, we think we want to do. So I started inserting myself in all these rooms to see, and my approach was, if I want to go back, that means this is the path I'm supposed to be on. So I started inserting myself in rooms to learn, be a student. I started doing things like scuba diving, all the things that I really wanted to do. And then I did start going to counseling. I started going to therapy, because I really started realizing that there were some subconscious things in my mind and in my life that I had never really dealt with before, that I had to suppress, like my relationship with my father, who wasn't in my life. And the thing that we think, especially as men, we're like, oh, I ain't need him around. I'm all right. I'm doing good. But what I had to realize through therapy is that you only get one mother and father in your life. And those people, for better or for worse, present or absent, still hold a place in your life, like they do. Because even in my father's absence, he still was informing my parenting without him saying a word, because I was trying to be the opposite of what he was. Like, I was trying to be the opposite. So he was still informing me as a man. He was still informing my parenting. And then I started reading. There were two things I read that really helped with this evolution. One was, I read an article by Richard Branson, the Virgin Island guy, Virgin Airlines. In that article, he talked about, he started all of his businesses from discontent as a customer. So that led me first to start thinking about, what am I discontent about? What am I most discontent about? And it was education. The other thing I read is, Russell Simmons has a book called Do You. And in that book, he talks about, we all know what we want to do. Like, we all know what our true north is. Just for whatever reason, we talk ourselves out of it. We suppress it. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough money. I don't have the resources. It's going to be too hard. Whatever it is, we talk ourselves out of it. And what he talked about in that book is that you don't need to talk yourself out of it. You need to trust it. And you need to lean into it. And you need to turn that thing into your singular focus. And what that means is that you focus on it relentlessly until you achieve it. And then you move on to something else. And so I started practicing this philosophy of singular focus. My first singular focus was writing a book. I actually wrote a book called Great, You Lost Your Job, Now Find Your Life, where I documented my time being unemployed. I thought it was going to be a short book. It turned into a pretty long book by the time I was employed again. I put that book out, and then my second singular focus became launching $1 Million Teacher Project, creating this organization. Because from the discontent, I realized that I was discontent with education, because I think education is the greatest equalizer. And if you're really trying to empower people, it starts with education. But it's this lofty system. Like, how can one guy be a part of changing all of education? What it is that you got to pick a niche. You got to pick an audience to focus on. And what I also discovered during that time was the teacher fan in me, that I really am a fan of teachers. I believe in their role in society, and that it's important. And it's a responsibility of us all to support that profession. So I put those two things together, education, teachers. And then my singular focus, come from the Do You book, became, okay, how am I going to support teachers? What does that look like? The entrepreneur in me led me to creating an organization. I needed a structure. Teachers then became my vehicle to impact society, became my vehicle to empower people, because I think teachers are at the nucleus. It starts in the classroom. And so the work we do in the classroom bleeds out. And so it was through that process that I was able to kind of unpack a lot of my own baggage, a lot of my issues, get closer to my faith, get closer to my wife. I had to address my trust issues, which are very hard, because what can happen, especially as men, we'll mask those trust issues and we'll act out and we'll maybe go talk to another girl or do something to make us feel better, we'll act out. And I didn't want to act out. I wanted to be a happy, healthy, whole, complete man. And so I had to do the work to be able to create that. So that's that journey that led to that evolution that would eventually wind up with me launching $1 Million Teacher Project and being here talking to you and having great people around my life, because I also learned to be really intentional about my energy and who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, you just said so much in that one statement. And I heard you, Lloyd, like you literally walked through kind of like this whole business process.
Yeah.
Find your niche, find your purpose, find your passion, and just be relentless. Find that space specifically for you, because we were all designed to do something very unique and purpose driven. And so I want to back up just a little bit. You talked about the trappings of success. And so if you thinking about the way that you grew up, and if you had the opportunity to talk to the young version of yourself, and as you're out there, for you, your primary focus on the front end is really the, how can I be successful? And that success for you initially was just all the materialistic stuff that society deems successful. So now, talking to your younger self, what would you say to your younger self about that whole trappings of success?
I would tell my younger self that material things don't make the man, that it's really more so about relationships, how you treat people. Success is not just financial. Success is also about living a quality life and how you impact people. And that you don't have to be a millionaire, you don't have to be rich and famous to be worthy of people respecting you, of people caring for you, of you having love in your life. Like, you don't just have to, be in the NBA and famous to get those things. Like, focus on your character. Be intentional about your relationships, protect your peace and protect your energy. Because I got caught up in a lot of foolishness. Protect your peace and your energy and follow your purpose, and everything else will follow.
Can you speak to that just a little bit? Protect your peace. Oh my goodness. So before we continue, I want to share a special offer with you. If you need help taking action on achieving your goals, can I invite you to enroll in our Gain Goal Clarity course? It is a self-paced online course. You will find it on conquerandcultivate.com. Enter the promo code SPARED to receive 50% off the normal enrollment fee. Now back to our episode. I remember you said you said in the cohort meeting, you said something to the effect of, we built these businesses to find freedom, not to become slaves to them.
We didn't create these businesses to create a prison for ourselves. I could go back and work for somebody if that's what I wanted. You're an entrepreneur, you should enjoy all the parts of that, which is also being able to set boundaries, being able to create your ideal type of environment, and protecting your peace is really about not inviting in unnecessary distractions, paying attention to your energy, paying attention to your gut, how you feel when you're around certain people, and knowing that it's okay for you not to be for everybody. I'm not for everybody, which is fine. And me owning that allows the right type of people in. We should only be in environments that are pulling us to be our higher selves, not vibrate low. Be in environments that are going to pull you to your higher self, and be around people that want to pour into what you do. And then you also pour into those folks. Like that's protecting your peace.
Yeah, that's important. That's important because so many times we try to fit in to places we're not designed to fit into. When in actuality, to your point, if we're protecting our peace and we're paying attention to the energy that is being given or the energy that's being received, then we will make better, more conscious decisions on how we navigate through this life.
And when you were talking about my conversation with my younger self, like I was horrible at that when I was younger. Like everything to me was a popularity contest. So I would walk into a room and then it would be about everybody in that room loving me by the time I leave. And I'm walking through and I'm code switching, I'm talking different to different audiences. And, and one of the things I'm very excited about what I do today is I walk into every room myself, 100% authentic. I'm not doing the code switching, playing a role, because I know I'm not for everybody and everybody's not going to be for me. And then the other thing that going back to what I would tell my younger self is don't confuse activity with productivity. Like just because you're running around doing a bunch of stuff and I'll sleep when I'm dead, it doesn't mean that you're actually doing anything that's propelling you forward. It just means you're busy and you're exerting a whole lot of energy. I used to put my energy into a whole lot of unnecessary places that weren't actually moving me forward. And now I'm even better at what I devote my energy to, how I divvy up my time, because you can't confuse productivity with activity. They're not the same.
Right. Let me ask you, when you were younger and you were code switching, did you realize that you were code switching, or was that something that you had just adapted over time and you just didn't realize it?
No, I realized it, and I just thought that was what everybody does. Like I felt like, like there was a version of Lloyd at home, there was a version of Lloyd at work. There was a version of Lloyd when I was with my boys. There was a version of Lloyd when I was doing stuff in the entertainment industry, because that was my first goal, was being in the entertainment industry. So there was a version of Lloyd that would show up in all of those rooms to try to bend to that room and appease the people in that room. And that got exhausting. Like that, it got exhausting. And as I went through my year and a half of being unemployed, a part of that journey was me shedding that. Like, no, I want to show up my authentic self, and I don't want to play those games, and I want to do what's true to me, what really speaks to me. And I just want to show up as the best version of me. Of course, I want to show up as the best version, but I don't want to show up as you. I don't want to do anything performative. And so that was the change. So I was very aware that I was doing. I just thought that was how you achieve success. You gotta dim your light to make other people feel comfortable. Like I'm an athletically built, fairly tall Black man. What I would do in a room, if I was in a predominantly white room, I would shrink in that room because I didn't want these people to feel like I was a threat. Like and when really that's theirs, that's not my problem. Like it's not my job to fix your problems. Yeah. Like if you have a problem with my presence in the room, that's for you to fix. Yeah. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show up in this room and I'm gonna be me. And I'm not really social anyway, so I'm probably gonna be here for a limited amount of time, and then I'm bouncing anyway, and you ain't got to deal with me anyway. So. Yeah, so I did a lot of dimming my light to make other people feel comfortable. I was okay with it. I thought that's what you had to do.
Yeah. And I was just talking to a lady earlier today, and I think that sometimes, especially from a cultural perspective, we are taught to come into a room and maybe shrink back. Don't be as big. Don't be yourself ultimately. Yeah. And so I think that that's a great reminder that show up your whole self. You don't have to pretend, you don't have to shy back, but truly show up who you are, and the right people will love you if they're going to love you, right? If not, then don't worry about it. The other piece that I loved that you said, Lloyd, is I'm not for everyone. And that it took me a minute to get to that space to where I realized I'm not for everyone.
Yeah.
And that you don't have to like me, and I'm okay with that. If you don't like me, you missing out, not me. And I'm good, so there are a lot of great reminders in there, just to be authentic, to be you, and don't exhaust yourself trying to be something that you're truly not.
Because it is exhausting and it will run you down. Like eventually you get tired of playing those games, and sometimes you can even lose who you are. And I tell my kids, my son and my daughter, hey, there's gonna be people you don't like know that and be okay with that. And there's also gonna be people that don't like you for whatever reason. They may not like you because you're pretty. They may not like you because you're tall. They may not like you because of who your friends are. They may not like you because you're Black. Like, humans are flawed. Human nature is flawed, and people are going to find a reason to like you. Don't let that knock you off your square. Understand that you're just not for everybody, and everybody's not for you, and that's okay. Find your tribe.
So, as we begin to transition out, Lloyd, when you think about your Spirit Change moment and you think about just kind of the lessons that you learned along the way, what are some of the biggest lessons that you would like to leave the listeners with today?
Trust yourself. Trust yourself. You know what you want out of life. Don't base what you want out of life off of a picture or an image that you see or a video that you see of somebody else's life. Like, do what speaks to you, do what's real to you. Understand that you don't have to be a multi-millionaire to live a quality life. Like, come up with a dollar amount for your ideal life. Like, how much would it cost for you to take a vacation every year or not to have to worry about your bills? And that's what you should be going after. And then chase your purpose and figure out how to turn your purpose and what you're passionate about, how to monetize it, how to make money off of it. Because that whole saying of when you do what you love, when you do what you love for work, you never work a day in your life, is a real thing. Like, I literally get up every day doing a bunch of stuff that I would probably do for free. Like, if I was working for a bank or whatever, I would have been fine. I would have found a way to try to also help teachers. I would have. Everything I do is a representation of me, and it is possible for us all to live that way.
Okay. So speaking of what you do, why don't you go ahead and leave the audience with what it is that you do at $1 Million Teacher Project. What are you most proud of this year, and what do you hope to accomplish?
$1 Million Teacher Project is a nonprofit organization that I launched in 2016 with the mission of elevating the teaching profession through increased support, compensation, and recognition. What we do is we partner with Title I schools. Those are schools that have at least 80% of their student body on free and reduced lunch. We partner with those schools on creating community-centered programming to help them increase how their teachers are recognized, drive more support directly into their classrooms, and create innovative ways to impact how their teachers are compensated. What I'm most proud of is this year we launched an endowment. So last year we raised $40,000 for this goal that I've had for 6 years, is to launch an endowment. So we established an endowment fund with the Arizona Community Foundation called the Teachers We Trust Fund. That fund is going to help. We created that fund to be able to offer financial assistance to teachers in varied ways, provide grants to schools to operate our programming on their school campuses, and to give grants to other organizations that are focused on teachers and impacting the teaching profession. This year we launched the fund. Now the work is to grow the fund so we can actually start giving out grants. So our next major goal is to raise $10 million so we can become a grant giving organization. So that's the next goal. So if anybody watching this wants to contribute, wants to help us get there, a corporation, a funder that also loves teachers, to link us to, visit milliondollarteacherproject.org and reach out.
Awesome. And we will put all of Lloyd's information in the comment section. Lloyd, thank you so much for being here again. I knew it was going to be a lot of great, valuable content pulled from it. So I definitely appreciate you, sir.
Queen Angela Garman, thank you. Like I said, I think highly of you, and I always cherish any time that I get to hang with you. So I'm honored and I'm thankful that you let me on your platform.
I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of the Spirit Change Podcast. Be sure to stay connected. And hey, if you have not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. You can follow me on social media or visit my website at angelargarman.com.